Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our breakout session. I want to congratulate the Dallas TEI board for putting on their first program here in a very difficult time with COVID-19. And we've got a wonderful program today with some speakers from around the country to facilitate this session. And so we'd like it to be interactive. So if any of you have questions at any time, just unmute yourself, jump in and ask a question. And I'm going to start the program today with introductions of the panelists, and then we'll have the content of the program. And following that, we'll have a formal Q&A at the end. But again, feel free, if you'd like to jump in at any time. So first, I'd like to introduce our three panelists, Matt, Chris, and Courtney. And Matt Nettleton has been a Sandler training in Indianapolis since 2003. And during this time, he's coached more than 225 companies in a wide variety of industries. He's helped multiple companies grow in a wide variety of industries. And he's helped many companies in the $1 million range grow to over $10 million in revenue. He's helped in total develop over $3 billion worth of new business. Chris Ferris is Vice President, Digital Strategy at PurePoint Communications, one of the largest PR and marketing firms in the South. PurePoint's headquarters are in Houston, but they also have offices in Dallas, Austin, New Jersey, and Cincinnati. Chris has worked at PurePoint for almost 3 years and specializes in developing proactive digital strategies and supporting tactics for his clients. He also manages PurePoint's own digital marketing program, focusing on new client acquisition. And he also teaches marketing class at Rice University to MBA students. Courtney Stroke joined Locktown Retirement Services as the first full-time Dallas-based associate in 2005 and was promoted to producer in February 2017, where her primary focus is related to new business development and ongoing fiduciary oversight for existing relationships. As a consultant, Courtney has worked on a wide variety of corporate retirement plans, including 401k, profit sharing, defined benefits, 401k-A, 403b, and 457 and non-qualified retirement plans. I am Philip Crone. I'm the founder and president of Productive Strategies. We're a sales process and marketing consulting firm. The two big issues that we help our prospects overcome when they become clients are too few leads, too few first meetings, too few RFPs to quote, or too low a success rate, too long a sales cycle, too much focus on price, sales-related issues. And we've been in business 27 years and have clients as small as one-man companies and as large as Fortune 500. The biggest sale we've helped make is $1 billion a year for 5 years for a company that started out with the name SXC and ultimately became Optum. So let's get right into the program. This is an exciting topic. We're all faced with this situation today where the virus is requiring us to have more and more online meetings and fewer meetings where we can be face-to-face and developing trust and communicating our expertise. So my first question is, as sales have shifted from the field to online, is there anything that's become easier or better? Chris, would you take that one?
I'd be happy to, Philip, and thanks for the nice introduction, and thanks to everybody who's joining our conversation today. Welcome. It's nice to virtually see everybody, and we're looking forward to hearing questions from everybody too. So the question was, what's become easier or better in this environment, Philip? And in a lot of ways, it has become harder to make connections, get leads, close deals. But in other ways, there are certain things that have gotten a lot easier. There are more and more online channels and more ways to reach people and more ways to be very targeted in how you reach those people. So whether it's with a targeted LinkedIn campaign, or writing a very specific blog and promoting it on your social media channels, or running a very specific Google Ads campaign. There are more and more versatile and flexible and not super expensive ways to try to increase the top of your sales funnel and get people into your sales pipeline. So it's different for a lot of companies, and a lot of companies are having to shift. But if you're smart about it and you either approach it the right way or hire the right agency or partner to help you with that, it can really yield a lot of benefits. I'll toot Pierpont's own horn for a minute. We rely on a lot of in-person meetings for our own sales funnel, right? We try to acquire new clients all the time, and going to in-person events, happy hours, luncheons, conferences, events, all these things. That's been our bread and butter for decades. And that's all gone really. And so we've shifted almost all of our top of the funnel lead generation online, and we've increased our budget, but we've also become more efficient at it. And we've been able to remain steady throughout the pandemic because of our refocused and recommitment to digital advertising to bring in sales for new leads for Pierpont.
Well, that's terrific. And I'd like to add some comments to that on the sales side. One of the things that's become a lot easier is team selling. It's so much less expensive to have that second person be on board. It could be the president of the company. It could be somebody who has a stronger relationship with the prospect than you do. Could be a technical expert. Could be a sales coach like Matt or myself, or somebody that comes along to help close the sale. So the big companies, the Hewlett Packards, the IBMs, when they call on important prospects, they always have a second person on the call. And the advantage they get from that is one person can watch the room, one person can think about what his partner is missing, one person can revive the call if it's gone south. And all of that is available today at a much lower cost. And the same thing happens on the buyer side. We can get more of the influencers on the call. It's easier because they just have to tune in at a certain time. They don't have to travel somewhere to be in the meeting. So I think a couple things. And the other thing I found is it's easier to get a hold of people. I don't know if the other panelists have found that, but the other day I was working a little late and we got a call in from somebody in Canada, and it led to, within a couple of days, some new business. And in the old days, I probably would have left the office and maybe had my phone off. So I think some things have gotten easier. My next question is, what roles does marketing play filling a sales rep's pipeline? And I'd like all three of you to comment on this one. Courtney, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So maybe a bit different than some of the other panelists here. My background really comes from the service side. So in 2017, I jumped into new business development without any formal sales training or background whatsoever. And so for me, marketing has always been an important part, both in person as well as now that we're working more remotely. However, what I would say is right now, recognizing that majority of our clients or our prospective clients are also working remotely, we have had to get creative in ways that we connect with them. And I think to Chris's earlier point, I think the most important piece of this is not assuming that the only way we can connect with them is email. I actually sat through a session earlier this month where it said email traffic is up 61%. And my inbox will be the first to say that is an accurate statement. And that responses is down 38%. So where I've really had to work with marketing is what can we do to make, if we are doing any type of email outreach or campaign, how do we make it effective? How do we increase that response rate to greater than the 38% reduction that we're seeing today? And also, what other ways can we be touching and connecting with people in this more virtual environment? I think it's through videos. I think it's through social media. We've hosted a variety of events to try and connect and network amongst our clients and potential future clients. And all of it has proven to be successful efforts overall. And final comment I'd make is making sure that we are connecting with our centers of influence too. I think they're an important piece for us to partner with. And again, being part of the North Texas TEI board, that's been a great opportunity as well as events like this where we're bringing natural networking together amongst our peers and our groups.
Okay, wonderful. Matt?
So my background is really, I'm a sales guy, right? But marketing done well really tells a sales story. And that's the thing that, you know, a lot of my clients are digital marketers. And what they learn is that if they tell the right story, they actually generate questions for their clients and their prospects. And the prospects come with the right question. The salesperson is prepared to have that conversation, and it works beautifully. Salesperson has to be educated. Marketing person has to be educated. So that would be a very short, quick answer. I don't know, Chris, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think you make a great point, which is you have to tell your story in the right way in the top part of the marketing funnel, so that when the person gets down to the salesperson, there's not a disconnect, right? So that they know what to expect once they get down to the salesperson. And so it's really important to have your messaging and your story, as you said, Matt, aligned all the way through the sales funnel. So at the top of the funnel, you're telling your story, and all the way through that process, when they look at your social media, when they go to your website, when they finally talk to your salesperson, everything sounds the same. You're all saying the same things, using the same words, telling the same story. And I wanted to double down on something Courtney said too. There is no substitute for a phone call still. You know, we do almost all of our marketing now. Like I said, almost all of it is online. But once we get down to the actual person connecting with our VP of sales, he calls them. I mean, occasionally he'll email them if they doesn't have a phone number, but he calls them right away, and he calls them immediately. We tend to call our prospects usually within an hour. And a lot of the times they say, well, I just filled that out like an hour ago. And we say, yeah, because we want your business. And you'd be surprised how the marriage of the very high-tech digital sales funnel combined with just good old-fashioned calling somebody on the phone is really powerful.
And one of the things, so Sandler has a research center. One of the things that we found is the response within an hour increases by 300% the effectiveness of the marketing.
Yes.
Like salespeople love to say, oh, marketing's giving me terrible leads, but you took 2 days to call them back. You ruined the lead. So
yeah, so we work super closely with our VP of sales, and we are constantly tweaking and adjusting our ads, because we don't just want 1,000 leads if they're all terrible. We'd rather have 10 great leads. And so we are constantly trying to adjust our online messaging, tweak the ads, move things around a little bit. And we have seen a steady increase. Our number of leads has actually gone down, but our number of quality leads has actually gone up. And so you don't have to spend more to get better leads. You just have to be smarter.
So just to add to that timing point, we found that if we don't respond to an internet lead the same day, and hopefully within a few hours, as Chris said, it's gone, because they're looking at a list of 4 or 5 names. And if they're already engaged in discovery conversations with a couple people, they're going to stop. And speed has always been helpful. This call that we got last week, I decided to write up my notes and send the proposal that evening. The conversation had been sufficient that I was able to do that. And I got an email back. I didn't see it until the morning, but he wrote me back at midnight and said, could we meet in the morning with the president of the company? So I think speed and alignment are the 2 takeaways from what we just discussed. This next question is closely related to what we've been talking about, but how has the relationship between marketing and sales now changed? Courtney, why don't you take that first, and then Chris, maybe you can add on.
Maybe what I would say, and again, I serve as a subject matter expert, right? People hire me to be an investment advisor on their retirement plan. And what I have really found as we've kind of moved into this more virtual selling environment is that it's really important that our marketing team is integrated with our new business development. And again, it goes back to the point Chris made. It's really important that whatever we are representing ourselves as in the marketplace. So if we are saying Locked In is XYZ. And typically we say we are more high touch, high feel boutique firm in the marketplace. And in reality, when they get to our sales team, if that's not the experience that they have in those first matter of moments, Chris's example is a great one, the hour return phone call, then we've really missed the mark. So I think we've spent a lot of time as an organization making sure that those two messages really are aligned well from that initial first interaction with any potential customer.
And to follow up on that, the communication between the marketing team and the sales team, at least within Pierpont, is constant. So we are constantly talking to our VP of sales, are these leads working? And it's not just anecdotal evidence. We run the numbers every month, right? We look at how much did we spend? How many leads did we get? How many of those turned out to be good leads? And then how many of those leads turned out to be actual clients of ours? So we can determine ROI for what we're spending. And for the last year, as we've been, much more integrated and much more focused on the numbers, our ROI has gone up and up and up, even through the pandemic. Even though it's harder to get new business now, the economy is still not in the greatest place. We're still seeing a pretty strong ROI on our digital marketing spending because we are so in touch and integrated with the sales team.
We found that this alignment question is so important that we have one person in our firm whose whole practice area is coaching companies on the alignment of sales and marketing. And what we found when we started to fix that was that often there's lack of alignment with operations. So marketing decides we're going to have a big sale, and they put out a lot of social media announcements, postings to LinkedIn, maybe some direct mail. All of a sudden the orders start coming in and two things happen. The sales department didn't know the promotion was going to take place, or production is caught short and they don't have any inventory and everybody's got egg on their face. So when we think about the alignment between sales and marketing, we really need to include the production in that and operations into that same triangle.
Yeah, if demand outstrips supply, that's a recipe for disaster.
So Matt and Courtney, maybe you'll take this one. What are some of the behavioral differences between the top producers and the less productive salespeople that enable them to be successful selling virtually? Courtney, you want to head us off?
Sure. So at Lockton, we are calling it what makes you the elite producer, right? Versus the top producer. And really, I would say, I think even at an elite level, and I look at it from an athlete perspective, what makes all of these elite athletes, no matter what sport you look at, truly the best in their field is that they practice and they do it every day. They have a certain, very regimented, in some cases, style in which they approach their next big win, right? For which for them is leading up to whether it's a football championship or winning the Masters or whatever it may be. And all of them have coaches. And again, what I would, share with you is over the last 2 months, I've actually invested in myself of hiring a coach. How can I get better at my game? And where I think I've been very active, right, and engaging in a virtual selling environment where we recognize we've had to pivot and shift in the way we engage and interact with future business opportunities. I've met with this coach over the last 2 months, and it's like, geez, there's all these things I should be doing that I'm not doing right now. And so again, it's making sure that every day, and for us right now, where I'm at is there are 3 priorities I have every day. And I have to grade myself at the end of the day of whether I have met those 3 priorities. Do I give myself a green? I got all 3 of them done. Do I give myself a yellow? I got 2 of them done. Or do I give myself a red and that I got 1 or none of them done? And again, there are days that it's in the red, right? Emergencies come up. Phil, as you mentioned, part of my responsibilities is not just new business sales, but also maintaining and serving as an investment advisor for ongoing business. So there are times where I have to put maybe those top 3 priorities on the back burner based on what one of our client needs are. However, it's then up to me the next day to realize that I missed this one day where I didn't hit these 3 objectives, and I need to adjust and pivot to include that in my objectives for the current day I'm on.
Okay, Matt?
So the biggest difference that I see between the top 20% and the other 80% is that the top 20% are assertively and professionally curious. And they're very good at discovering, identifying, engaging professional opportunities in conversations, not with knowledge, which they have, but with questions, which they practice. And that's really probably the number one thing beyond anything else that I see.
And I would add to that the quality of those questions makes a significant difference. And I think Matt's absolutely right. The big behavioral difference from our standpoint is that those 20% know how to create value for the prospect within the sales process. With a transactional seller, all the value is in the transaction itself, the deliverable. Think of the difference between the pharmacy and the doctor. The pharmacy takes pills in bulk. They put them in little bottles. They label them. You give them cash, they give you pills, and the only value is what you drove away with the pills in the bottle. The doctor does the type of diagnosis that Matt's talking about, where his discovery process in itself is creating value for the prospect. And one of the things we found, and I've been speaking to this topic all summer, is that the gap between those 20% and the 80 is getting bigger during this period, because the less productive sales process, the more transactional one, the one that's all about me, the seller, and not about you, the prospect. That process doesn't translate very well to online or the phone, but the consultative process translates very well into all three mediums. Trust is built, expertise is conveyed, and it's all through, as Matt said, the very good questions that are being asked. So there's a distinct difference. And, Matt made a great point about curiosity. I think the naturals have that curiosity. They're always asking good questions. They're asking one more question than anybody else. But this can be taught, and it can be taught to people who feel they're not naturals. I'd say about half the people we train would call themselves salespeople, and the other half are technical people, engineers, architects, lawyers, who have to bring in business but wouldn't consider themselves a salesperson. So I think some excellent points made there. What's the primary focus of the top 20% of salespeople? I think we'll have all of you also touch on that. What is their focus? Chris, I want to start with you.
I'll just reiterate what a couple of the other folks have said today. It's about bringing value to the client. It's not, like you said, Philip, it's not just about me, we're great, we're terrific. It's here's how we can help you. We're in the middle of redoing our company website right now, and we're really trying to re-engineer how we talk about ourselves and how we structure our website, which is one of our it's basically our primary sales tool, right? When we have all the online advertising, we are trying to get them to the site to fill out a form, which then goes into our VP of Sales' hands. And we're really trying to reimagine how we talk about ourselves in a better way, so that we're focusing on the value that we bring to the client, not how great we are. Even though we think we're pretty great, what can we do for you? And I guess that'd be my take to that answer, or to that question, excuse me.
Okay, Courtney?
I would actually go back to one of the things Matt said. I mean, I think what the primary focus of the top 20% would be is, how do we create and engage individuals that we've never talked to before? And again, I think it's asking good questions. And, just because we engage in a conversation doesn't necessarily mean that the buyer is ready to buy whatever it is that we are talking to them about, right? It's really just a way in which we help identify, is there a problem? And if so, is there any way that we can help? And if we can't, that's okay. And I think all of us have to be willing to accept that that's okay is a good answer for now. It doesn't mean never, but I think that top 20% has a process in place where they're ready to go back 12 months from now, where, hey, you answered this and had an answer to this question I asked you about this, and here's something new or exciting, that we have that I think would fit really well in what you're trying to, roll out or have been thinking about? And what do you think? Does it make sense for us to have another conversation around it? And I think that primary, focus really goes back to having active conversations and asking really good questions as part of it.
You made a great point about follow-up, and it's always been my belief that the reason people don't get the return on investment they're looking for from trade shows, webinars, seminars, is the lack of follow-up afterwards. Matt, anything to add to this one?
So we actually teach very aggressively that professionals sort and amateurs sell. And I think the top 20% salespeople are excellent sorters. They force prospects to qualify on, do they have a reason to change? Do they have an assigned budget? Do they have a decision process that we're willing to go through? And as they move through the process of conversation, there has to be mutual qualification. And the top 20% are very comfortable saying to somebody, you know what, we're not a fit. As a salesperson, I'm going to turn you down, right? And the bottom 80% are scrambling around. They'll take anything. I think if we just change everything we do, boss, and lower our price, we can make this sale. Okay, but we don't want it. So, I think that's really the focus: is professionals sort, amateurs sell.
And talking about qualification, I think a lot of amateurs qualify one time and they first meet a prospect. And we teach, and Matt probably does too, that it's good to requalify that prospect halfway through your sales cycle, maybe 100% through. Maybe they look pretty attractive as a prospect 2 months ago, but with what's in front of you right now in your pipeline, maybe it's not. So requalifying is often a good idea. Next question is, how can sellers develop relationships, be seen as experts, and be trusted when meeting virtually versus in person? Courtney, do you want to start us on that one?
Sure. So I'm happy to. So for those of you who don't know me, I work for a company. We're headquartered in Dallas. Our offices have remained closed, right? So again, we have not returned a foot into our offices just yet. I also am the proud mom of 3 small children. I have a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And, lastly, we live in Dallas, Texas, in a home that was built 100 years ago. So square footage is like a prime commodity here. And I don't have maybe what you'd have as a natural home office where I have a door I can shut. And so for me, it's really important, especially coming off as a fiduciary and an investment advisor, that virtually, I'm not in a boardroom, I'm not in an office, that people still see and engage in our preparation as being appropriate and of good quality for the type of service that we're providing. So again, I think virtual backgrounds, I think recognizing that being on camera and having people see you along with the maybe dialogue or verbal comments that you're making is important. And I think all of those things help build an overall partnership and create that natural, hopefully, trust of seeing you as a trusted advisor.
Matt?
So I'm going to dip back into questions, because I think that the single most important thing to establish yourself as an expert is to have questions that demonstrate acumen and the ability to ask a question that is both relevant and impactful. A lot of people, when they're brand new, they ask a lot of questions, but they don't really understand what the answers are. And then you fall into that part of your career where you're so busy explaining to everybody what you know that you don't ask any questions, but you really are pretty good at reading all the marketing brochures. And then you finally become a little bit more professional and you learn how to ask the question that leads you to the correct part of the marketing brochure or the correct part of your business services. And that's really, I think the key is understanding what it is you should be talking about.
That's a great point. The discovery process does reveal the expertise, and it also conveys why they should trust you. Business travels at the speed of trust. And when someone picks up that you're not there to make a sale, you're there to find out, as Matt pointed out earlier, whether this is a good fit for both parties. Then it's conveyed that you're the honest broker. You're not there to sell ice cubes to Eskimos. And I think those two things we've talked about are very important. How the discovery process conveys expertise and how it also builds trust.
I'd like to just make one other comment, Philip, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Which is one of the quickest and easiest ways to build the brand of your company is to make sure that all of your key employees and leaders have current, helpful, robust LinkedIn profiles. That is what we see all the time. When people are considering hiring Pierpont, they go to our website, they look at our bios on our website, but they also go to our LinkedIn pages. And we've put, probably even ourselves have not put a premium enough on making sure that all of the team members within Pierpont have really robust profiles that tell the Pierpont story, because that's one of the ways that people make decisions now. They go, well, I can't be this person in person, so let me just go look at their LinkedIn profile. Who are they connected to? What do they say about themselves? Do they even have a picture? You'd be surprised how many people don't even have their own picture on their LinkedIn profile. And I think that's a disincentive. Like, well, are they even taking their own selves seriously if they don't have a photograph on LinkedIn? So if that's like super low hanging fruit that everybody watching or listening to this should just do, make your LinkedIn profile awesome. You tell your own story, you can say whatever you want, and it's free.
That's a terrific point. Anybody have anything else to add on that one?
So Phil, maybe just one other comment. So again, I mean, I'm coming at this from a very niche market, right? People hire me to provide fiduciary investment advice. And over the past 8 or 9 months, you know, we have tried many different ways to engage and connect with current clients as well as future clients. And it's everything from, we've hosted virtual yoga classes to cocktail classes, a wine tasting class, all sorts of different networking type events. And then, you know, probably every 2 weeks, we've had one that's more technically available or educationally based regarding our specific niche market. I go back to Matt's point of differentiating or sorting of where people are at. I do think people realize that their time is really important. And I think what we're seeing is more people really actually want the content. They are really connecting with us because they want to see if we have the technical expertise that they're looking for versus I'd like to have a free wine tasting class. And so I think we are really getting people engaged in a different way from that respect that maybe otherwise when there's opportunities to have in-person sessions, it's really hard to have those technical sessions nationally, right? I mean, we can't fly a speaker out to 20 different locations and make that maybe as cost effective as we want to. And I think we've really seen an uptick in the amount of technical expertise that those future clients are really looking to us to provide and help them make these informed decisions.
We did something like that too in April when we were all just sort of getting used to this new environment. We thought, let's invite all of our manufacturing clients to get on a Zoom call and just talk about what are they all doing to cope with this? How are they keeping their people safe? What's going on with the PPP loans and all those kinds of questions. And we were amazed. First of all, we sent out an email about it and I followed up and called each one of them. I was amazed at the percentage of people I reached because of course they were all at home and they weren't commuting or flying somewhere. And then the second thing was they all said, yes, I'll be on the call. And in normal times, we would have been lucky to get half that many people on the call. And it was only an hour, but everybody really liked it and felt it was a great exchange. So I think you're onto something with trying to come up with different types of, whether it's cocktails or a lunch and learn or whatever it is, to try and stay in touch. Matt, your thoughts on that one?
I think they've covered it. I mean, it's
Okay.
really, how do you engage people where they are?
And one of the questions is who are going to be the winners and who are going to be the losers as we go forward the longer this lasts. Chris, you want to take that one? Do you have any thoughts about any gaps that might open up?
Yeah, so we've seen some of our clients completely turtle during the pandemic. Now, part of it was because they had no choice. What they had, their whole business model was completely disrupted by COVID. But other companies, again, they kind of panicked and turtled, and they sort of went into their shell, and they started, cutting marketing or reducing PR or trying to, they're cutting off the funnel for new business by reducing their visibility out there. And so I think the companies that are going to come out of this stronger are the ones that continue to be aggressive. That doesn't mean, as I said before, necessarily spending more money, but just being aggressive and spending your money really efficiently. And that could be in all sorts of different channels. My expertise happens to be in digital, and I think digital is a really good place to spend your marketing and advertising dollars, because you can be so specific and so targeted on who you're reaching to grow your sales. There's an old joke that advertisers used to say, well, I know half my advertising budget works, I just don't know which half.
Mhm.
But now if you're doing digital marketing, you can pretty much tell what's working and what's not, not 100%, but it's a lot more precise than it used to be. And so I think the companies that are embracing going more digital are going to be the ones that come out better than some of the ones who aren't.
And I think there's been some fantastic stories of people who were turtled, as you say, and then pivoted somehow, and all of a sudden are doing something with their operations or their marketing that's completely different. I'm on the board of a not-for-profit called Feed My Starving Children, which we have facility, Courtney, in Dallas, so you may know who they are. But we pack 1 million meals a day by volunteers. It's the largest volunteer organization in the country, 1.4 million volunteers every year. Well, on March 13th or 14th, the number of volunteers went to 0. 9 days later, after saying they would never pack food with machines because we need the donors to come out and pack the food and feel good about what they're doing and then pay for the ingredients. Within 9 days, they had food rolling off a manufacturing process. So they had to pivot. And I've seen a few customers who, as you said, went into the shell and stayed there. And some came out and pivoted and figured out a new way of doing something. Courtney, any thoughts on that one?
So it's really interesting. Even though I'm in sales, I don't really have a sales territory. So I can have clients all the way from California to New York to Florida to Detroit, and obviously here in Texas. And so part of my job and role is to travel to these regular committee meetings and meet in person with clients, and same goes with sales. I think there is going to be a big shift where, again, we are not going to return to where we were at, where everyone wants to meet in person. And I think that those that don't see that as a viable piece, and I'm not saying it's going to stay the same. I think there will be definitely a return to more in person than what we have today. But I think it will take years to eventually return to where we were at 12 months ago. And I think that, again, it goes back to asking, or to Matt's point of asking good questions. Do they want to meet with us in person? And if not, how do we make this the most effective virtual experience where they don't feel like they've really lost anything from that? I think many of our customers and prospects have found that this is a really effective use of their time. They're able to get so much more done. I joke, people talk about, what are you doing with all your COVID time? Where you're not driving to and from to the office or sitting on a plane. And I'm like, well, I'm still working during all of that. It hasn't really changed, maybe just the way I'm doing it. But again, I go back to, I think people are realizing there's more effective ways that we still can create that same relationship in business. And it goes back to, I think when we lift some of these restrictions, is that how people still want to engage with us? And I think that's going to be on an individual answer.
I think you make a great point, and I've been predicting it will never go back to the way it was. And I'll give you a good example. I talked this week to somebody who's in development with a large East Coast university. Her territory is the Midwest. She said to me, my old business model was I made 50 calls to book 15 appointments with alumni and potential donors. I fly to O'Hare. I spend 3 days at Starbucks and restaurants and coordinating these meetings. And I'm probably leaving out some people I should be calling on because I have to make my numbers. So I'm mostly calling on the people who have given in the past and the large donors. And then Thursday night, I fly back. She said, can you imagine the amount of time I'm saving? I don't have to triage those. I can now call higher up and spend more time on the big donors. I can call on those people we've never called on, but who look like on paper they may not be good donors, but we don't know because we've never had the time to call those people. And here's the most interesting thing she said to me. My colleagues don't feel the same way I do, that this has been a gift. And they just are sitting in their offices waiting for the field days to return. And Matt, you've probably seen some of these too. When are the good old days going to be back when I could go in and schmooze with the guy? And I say they're never going all the way back. Matt, what say you?
So there's 275 Sandler offices around the country, and we have a pretty wide exposure to businesses of all sizes. And we have found that businesses have fallen into three groups. 20% of the businesses that we work with are attacking the market. Things are tough. Let's get after it. We'll figure it out. Let's keep attacking. And 60% of the market is sitting back going, we want to attack, but we're not really sure where to start. And they're looking for help. But there's 20% of the market that is hunkered down, turtled up in Chris's words, saying, hey, listen, this will pass and we'll be fine.
Yeah.
I can tell you about the future of two of those groups. The people who are attacking will win. The people who are turtled up will lose. The thing I can't tell you is that middle 60%, right? How long are they going to be unsure? How long is it going to take them to make a decision? I use a phrase that I got from a sports coach when I was younger, and it was the streets are littered with flat-headed squirrels that couldn't go left or right. And I think that's kind of where those people are, right? I mean, there's traffic coming. You got to figure out which way you want to go, but you got to go now. And that's really what we're dealing with right now. You got to take action.
And this is a question that I think our participants would be interested in, which is, what's the biggest change that you've had to adapt to with this new environment? What are you doing differently now than you've done in the past? Matt, why don't you take that one first?
So my business has actually traditionally been live sales training, face-to-face. I have 150 to 200 people in my office every week for events. That's not happening now. You're not having a room of 35 to 50 people for a training session. We moved online. So we were actually at a live event the first week of March. We were the last major convention in Florida. I spoke in front of 2,000 people. The following Monday, the world shut down. And the following Monday after that, we started a series of webinars every morning from 8 to 9 a.m. And we did it because we figured we had nothing else to do. I mean, it was the only way we could figure out to attack the market. In 23 webinars, we had over 6,500 attendees. I had never even thought about doing a daily webinar series to generate revenue and interest. The fact that I moved online without missing a beat is still amazing to me. So that's been my biggest. Our deliverable is completely different today than it was 6 months ago.
We had the same experience. We had never taught online. We thought the training was so complex and interactive and consultative that we needed to be face-to-face. But you're sitting there in April, there's no sessions going on. So we converted our course, and now we see our clients saying, we like this better. We didn't have to fly to another city. Our people are doing this from home and they have the rest of the day. Our training sessions are half days, and it's given them back a lot of time. So I think that's a good example of how you pivoted.
Well, could I throw one thing into that before
Sure.
we move on? We've always done some online training, and I actually have a client who in 2018, we did a year of online training for half their company that was remote, and we did the same year, we did live training for their local people. And the remote people actually saw their sales jump 21%. I mean, that's pretty good, but the live people saw their sales jump 70%. So when you start to think about it, 20% sounds good, only if you don't know about the 70%, right? I think there's a place for live training. I think there's a place for face-to-face meetings. I think, Chris is, hey, we meet people in their offices. We have conversations. I think Courtney traveling everywhere but Detroit. I don't think there's any reason to ever go back to Detroit, but everywhere else, I mean, going there and meeting with people, it's good. It's not that remote doesn't work. It doesn't work the same.
That's a great point. And I think it will be different for every customer. If you've got a customer and all his salespeople are in Chicago, sure, why not do it in person? But if his salespeople are spread all over the country, maybe he brings them back for the first couple sessions, but after that he goes remote. So it could be whatever works best for that customer, which is true of almost everything. What's been the most difficult adjustment that any of you have ever had to make in this environment? Chris, how about you?
Yeah, it's something we've talked about, tying into what Matt just said. It's hard not meeting with clients face to face. So whenever we get a new client, we always try to meet with them in person for onboarding, discovery sessions. We feel like it's costly, right? It costs money to drive across town or drive across state, or in some cases fly across the country. But there's still something that's so important about a face-to-face personal meeting. And so thankfully we've been able to bring on a bunch of new clients in the last 8 months, but we've had to do all of our onboarding and discovery sessions with them in a format like this. And we're adapting to it and people are getting better at it. But that's hard. And some people within Pierpont are better at it than others, and some of our clients are better at it than others. Some clients completely have jumped, but with both feet into the Zoom pool. But other clients, they're struggling a little bit to communicate and sort of open up to us so we can learn what we need to learn so we can be a successful partner for them. So that's probably a pretty cliched answer, but it's a cliche because it's true.
Okay. And Courtney, the biggest challenge or difficult adjustment you've seen?
So, I mean, again, I'll share about myself. So I test high on emotional intelligence. I'm a fast talker. I like to get engaged. And I think what's been really challenging in a virtual selling environment is assuming I can get them on video, I can read some of the nonverbal cues, right? So again, I can see and hone in on some of the emotional intelligence components of it. I will say on video, I still have to be very conscientious of taking long pauses to let people digest whatever I say and not talk over the opportunity for someone to ask a question. And so I still think that's really challenging to do and something that I'm still actively working on every day. I think it becomes even more challenging when I'm trying to accomplish those two things via email or a phone call, right? And if that's the only two ways I can connect with a client, it really changes the way in which I have to deliver. And again, it's pushing me outside of my comfort zone of how do I take long pauses. I think to Matt's point, I have to be prepared to ask really good questions. And I think the last thing is I can't rely on just flipping to another page in a presentation deck because they don't have a presentation deck, right? We're shifting to this virtual sharing experience. So trying to create this where it's integrated and allow them to drive conversation where they want it to go versus me assuming we're going to go from page 1 to 2. It may not be that linear in this type of virtual environment. And I think we have to be ready to accept the fact that they may want to go from page 1 to page 17. And how do we create an environment where that meets their needs and allows us to pivot quickly to that.
Okay, great point. Matt?
No, I think they've covered it. I think that's good handle.
Okay. Anything that's a positive takeaway from all this that you think you'll want to continue to do when things get back to normal? Something that you've learned by going through the struggle. Matt?
So we've talked for a long time with our clients about living in a results-only work environment or a row, and how it really is not appropriate for a person who is a sales professional to be, hey, you got to be at the office at 8, and we expect you to check out at 5, and you get 33 minutes for lunch. The one thing that I think we've learned now is that your team can be productive without you standing over them, telling them what to do. It takes enhanced management skills. That's a whole nother conversation. But the results only work environment is stronger today than ever before.
Well, we see that in the form of pipeline pressure, where a company is so focused on what's happening at the top of the funnel. And one of the things we teach is that you need to have a balance sheet approach to the funnel. How much time can I put at the top of the funnel prospecting and still be sure I'm making the investment in time at the discovery part of the funnel so that I'm being productive? We had a company call us in one time. It was a Fortune 1000 firm. And they said, we typically close 20% of our new business. This year it's only 8, and we don't know why. And I said, well, did you change your expectations of the funnel? This goes back to what Matt said about results only. And they said, yeah, we noticed that for every 13 first meetings, we develop 5 proposals. And out of 5 proposals, we get 1 new business. And that's the 20%. So I said, let me guess, you went and told your people you'd like to see 26, 10, and 2. Well, once they had the pressure of producing 26 first meetings in a month, the quality and quantity of those leads went down. And now they're spending all their time trying to meet this metric, and they're shortchanging the good candidates in the middle of the funnel, where they should be investing their time in the discovery process. So I think it's a great point, Matt. The companies that are overly focused on metrics are going to have a hard time meeting those metrics.
Spreadsheet jockeys kill sales departments.
Yeah, I would maybe just add, to my personal experience, and again, it goes to the pipeline. It's important being in sales that you have potential opportunities in all ends of the pipeline, right? So again, who am I having brand new conversations with? Who are active conversations that I should be moving forward in discovery, and who are on the 10-yard line that may be close to hiring us? And it's important in that funnel that I have representation in all of those categories. And I think the only thing, Matt, to your point, that I measure is, do any of those have a big goose egg where I have a 0? Because that means that I've missed the opportunity somewhere along that line. And I need to make sure that I'm having components in each one of those. But I would go back to results. That's a lagging indicator. That is absolutely no representation of my future ability to bring in additional revenue. That's my past effort and past experience. So I think it's important to make sure you're placing that effort on leading indicators just as much, if not more, than those lagging components.
Yeah.
I agree with everything. Oh, sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Well, I was going to get you involved there and talk about new prospects, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was going to agree with everything that's been just said, that it's better to focus on quality than quantity. And that's the lesson that we've learned during the last 8 months. We knew it intuitively, but it's been really reinforced and driven home. The other thing I was going to say in answer to Phil's question of what's been a benefit of all this is that so we had tended to be, we're located, our headquarters is in Houston. We have offices mostly in Texas. We have a couple of offices in New Jersey and Cincinnati, but we've tended to be more of a regional company. And I think what this whole thing has shown businesses is that you can hire somebody to do the work from kind of anywhere. You don't, I mean, there are some regional things where they want you to have local know-how or knowledge of the local market. But for a lot of companies, they've, I think, been sort of liberated from this idea that they need to hire somebody in their own backyard because everything's been virtual and a lot of businesses are doing well and even thriving. And so I think that's opened up opportunities for a firm like Pierpont that has a little bit of a regional reputation, that we can shed that a little bit and be available and be successful for companies almost regardless of geography.
Yeah.
Courtney, I think you were you're the deputy moderator, so
Yes,
I'll kick it back over to you.
So I was actually going to just shift, maybe let's move to some prospecting conversations just with the time that we have remaining. So Chris, maybe I'll ask you, how are you staying engaged with clients and prospects, or how is Pierpont staying engaged with clients or prospects?
So we have a regular prospecting meeting twice a month. And so we go through current clients. Is everything going okay with these current clients? Are there any opportunities? In other words, we're doing this level of work for them. Is there an opportunity where we can add value to add another layer on top of that, whether it's PR or crisis communication or something like that? And then everybody's got their own punch list. So we have one VP of sales, but all of the senior leaders within Pierpont are also responsible for bringing in a certain amount of new business. And so we have our own punch list that we go through all the time. Have you touched this client or this prospect recently? What's your latest connection with them? Does anybody else in the firm know anybody here? And so we're constantly revisiting and revising our current clients, ups opportunities and new clients, and trying to help each other out. The other week, I was trying to find an in with a local healthcare organization, and one of my friends at work said, "Oh, I know somebody there. Let's talk offline." So we're doing even more of the supporting each other to make sure that we're getting as many opportunities as we can.
Yeah, I mean, and I would echo that. I think what I've realized is I may be like the worst millennial from an age group perspective, where technology is sometimes my friend, but more often than not, I probably don't use it as well as I probably could be. And I have found that some of these like sales tools like Salesforce or other groups like that is helpful for me of just keeping track of where I'm at in a process with any potential client or prospect, or reminding me of key components of a conversation we had, or questions that they had that they wanted additional information on. And recently, oddly enough, I've had really good success of pushing a couple of clients or now new clients over the finish line. And it had everything to do with the follow-up, where it was, hey, our current advisor never reached out to us on any of these topics. And you gave us like 4 pieces in 8 weeks that were really helpful and made us look really good in front of our leadership team. And that was a huge differentiator for us. And so I agree with you. I think just having that regular cadence and touch point, but making sure it's meaningful, has also been really helpful. Matt, anything you want to add to the conversation?
No, I mean, again, it's the measured marketing. That's Indianapolis has a lot of measured marketing companies with Salesforce and Exact Target, having been here for a while. And being relevant in your questions, being relevant in your presentations, being relevant in your touches. We teach people there's touch calls, there's tap calls, and there's track calls. And it can't be just calling somebody up and saying, "Hey, I'm checking in." There's got to be more to it than that.
So I'm going to ask the two of you, because I'm interested in this answer as well. What are companies doing to find new prospects?
I think they're having to be more creative than, a lot of companies, and Matt alluded to this earlier, they're doing things this way they've always been doing things because we've been doing things that way. And I think the companies who are willing to break the mold, think differently, try new things are more successful. And, I feel like I've been beating this drum all day, but one of the benefits of digital marketing, other than the fact that you can usually measure what's working and what's not, is that it's usually not super expensive to just try something out. And so if you want to throw a little bit of money at a LinkedIn campaign or a couple of Google ads, you can do that for couple $100 and look at the early returns. And as long as you're smart about it and say, are we getting leads from this? Are these generating sales? And give it, a little bit of time, 3 or 4 weeks. Those are the companies that I think are successful, that are willing to fail. It's okay to fail as long as you learn from it. And then in that case, it's not a failure. So don't be the companies that are not afraid to try things, measure them, and say, all right, this didn't work. We know why it didn't work. We're going to adjust it and try it again. I think those are the companies that are they're going to ultimately be the most successful.
So Steve asked the question, specific lead gen techniques that have worked. I mean, well, you still have the magic money box, right? Everybody's familiar with the magic money box, the telephone, right? You can pick that up and you can talk to people who give you money. It's amazing, unbelievable. Still works even today. LinkedIn messaging, LinkedIn campaigns. You can target geographically. You can target by IP address. You can target titles. There's all kinds of online campaigns. I have made money off direct mail. I'm a believer in letters with stamps and signatures. I've made money off email campaigns. I've made engagement off of Twitter, which makes no sense to me. But the number of people that see a tweet and click through to watch a video or download a worksheet is unbelievable to me. All those things work. There's nothing fancy. There is no easy button, unfortunately. There's a lot of blocking and tackling that's required. And Gartner did a study, said 16 touches to engage a prospect in 2019. I think it might be higher in 2020, but those touches can be focused, those touches can be measured, and those touches can be more valuable if they're done correctly.
I apologize for my internet interruption, but I'm back. I'd like to add to what Matt said. The number one way that we generate leads is through referrals, which is probably true of most people watching this. But the second most over the years has been people we meet at our TEI meeting. And it can be relationships we build with the board, but mostly in the annual meeting when they were in person and you could meet somebody at lunch and find out they own a plastic injection molding company, and the next thing you know, you're doing work for them. So I'd like to add that to what Matt said. Courtney, you wanted to add too?
Yeah, I was just going to go back to maybe the point Matt said about the 16 touches. I'm assuming that also means those 16 touches aren't 16 emails, right? Or 16 tweets. It's a mix of all of those different components together, right?
Yeah, so you have to have a cadence. I mean, Chris could probably speak to this more intelligently than I can, but you have to have a series of communications that have the same message, have the same tone, deliver the same kind of je ne sais quoi that you need. And you've got to do it over time, consistently, to each individual. And so you've got to build that structure. You just can't call somebody once and leave a voicemail and then call them back a week later and leave the same voicemail and then do that 16 times and get business from them. That's not the way it works.
Yeah, the way I would look at it, and you're right, Matt, I do have a method to that kind of madness where first you build awareness, make sure they know your name, they recognize the name of you or your company, and it becomes familiar to them. Then you educate them about you or your company. After they've developed the awareness, like, oh, I've heard of that company. What do they do again? And then you tell them what they do, and then you get them interested in you. And then they know who you are, they know what you do. Then you say, here's how we can help you. And then that gets them, that's working their way down the sales funnel. And those can be part of the 16 touches of building awareness, educating them, and then trying to catalyze interest.
We're getting close to the time where we have to send you back for the lunch speaker. And I'd like to know if anybody in the audience has a question for any of the panelists. Please unmute yourself and just tell us your question, or feel free to type into the chat box. Give you a minute here to unmute. Well, let's try something a little different. It'd be interesting for us on the panel to hear from you all of one takeaway from what you heard today. I think it might be helpful. Eloise Marie, would you like to unmute and just share with us a takeaway that you had from today's session?
Nope.
How about David? David, would you like to unmute?
Sure. Yeah, this is David, and you know, I'll actually go back with a question to everybody. So we are stick in the mud, traditional face-to-face trade show conferences is where we meet our leads. Very technical. We meet with R&D personnel, and so to start with a digital marketing campaign is foreign to us. And I'm curious about from all four of you a get started primer on. Chris, you mentioned, you know, doing some simple $100 LinkedIn, contacts, and maybe just touch base on a newbie, what a newbie does to engage a dinosaur company into the digital world.
Sure, David, and most of you're basically a B2B client or B2B
Correct.
business, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So I would start on LinkedIn and I would build a campaign kind of like I just described a minute ago, where you want to build awareness and then education and then interest. And so for each stage of that funnel, you're trying to reach very particular people. And so I would imagine you have a very clear idea of who the kinds of people are that you want to reach, not just their names, but their job titles and the kinds of companies they work for. And probably there's maybe even some geographic areas that you want to focus on. And what LinkedIn allows you to do is to really narrowly target the people who meet all of the criteria that are most likely to be clients of yours. And then I would build it as a 3-stage campaign like I just described. First, push out, you do it within LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn Ad Manager, as I believe the name of it. And you build a 3-stage process. First, you build awareness. You put LinkedIn posts that are driven by this ad budget in front of the kinds of people who you want to build awareness among. So you're not expecting a lot of click-throughs. You just want to get eyeballs. You want to get impressions. You want to get people to know your business. Then the next one is you're educating them about what you do. And you want a few people to be clicking through, but again, you're mostly just wanting people to learn about you and maybe even follow you on LinkedIn or something like that. Then the third stage is you try to target mostly the same people to try to get them to fill out a form, contact one of your salespeople, download a PDF, something like that, where you've got some contact information from them, whether it's an email or a phone number. And that's when you start doing the in touch, circling back to contact them. So it's a 3-stage process. And you can even start it in a very narrow geographic area if you want to start small. You still do all the other things, right? You know, their job titles, their businesses, their industries, their interests. And then you maybe start in a small geographic area and pilot test this and work out the kinks. And then once you've worked out the kinks, then you can expand it to other geographic areas.
Great. Yeah, that's a nice primer of a way to go about it. Thank you.
Welcome.
And Jonathan Rio, would you unmute if you have a comment or a question on the program?
Sure. No comment or no question here, but I did have a comment. I think I posted something earlier that I definitely took away kind of what you guys were saying about, it's always about fit and not fee. And so there's a lot of times where in this environment, you're tempted to lowball something to get work. And, we experience that with a lot of our competitors in the public accounting space. So definitely can relate there. And I thought that was a really good point.
Excellent.
All right. Well, one of the things that a strong sales process does is it takes the focus off of fees. I think you raise a very good point. Well, we're right up against the 12:25 Central Time. Thank you all for coming, and thank you to each of the panelists. Did a great job, and again, I apologize for my 10-minute absence while I had to reboot my online technology.
Not a problem.
Good luck with the rest of the conference.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.